Okay, this is communication in popular culture. This is the first lecture. So the following preview has been approved for restricted audiences only. Later down the line, we will talk about what this actually means. So, how to succeed in this class is simple. The syllabus is your friend, it's your guide. Pay close attention to it. If you have any questions, make sure you email me or you use the Remind app to get in touch with me. Okay, so basically, we're going to be trying to understand the possible what of communication and analyzing the possible how of communication. We'll use the book about 10%. That's just you have to read the book because some of the information that you will be asked about is in your text as far as like the quizzes and the exams. But the majority of the information will come from the class. So, defining popular culture. Popular really just means of the people. That's simple, right? So, what is culture and how does culture shape who you are? So, culture is defined kind of broadly as the general process of intellectual, spiritual, aesthetic development, a particular way of life, of how you live. What culture did you come up in? And how did that make you the person you are today? So, culture as ideology. From your culture, you adapt and adopt, you know, these ideologies. So, let's talk about what culture as an ideology is. So you got a systematic body of ideas. Like you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, you're an independent, you're a communist, you're a capitalist. These are a part of who you are and what makes you you. So false consciousness, as Marxist sociologies would say, is a term used to describe ways in which material, ideological, institutional processes are said to mislead members of the proletariat. Basically, a false consciousness is living above your means. So there's a phrase people have champagne taste with beer money. But looking at television and movies and magazines and ads, you're constantly shown what you should have. Like this is popular. This makes you on puts you on this elite level, this level of status. You know. Then you have the material practices is things that are just tangible that you can touch, like a Louis Vuitton purse, a Range Rover truck, a Mercedes Benz, an expensive Rolex watch. These are just material items, a large house, so on and so forth. Um, so that's what we talk about. And unconscious levels is just we do this without thinking. We don't put a lot of thought into this. It's just what we see over and over again. We react to it, and it's almost like a natural process. So defining them together is popular culture equals the material unconscious conscious of the everyday. So your book on page 8 defines popular culture as the activities, objects, distractions, and focus of daily life. Like you see things you want them. It could be ice cream, it could be pizza, it could be Chick-fil-A nuggets. You see somebody else eating them. You want to wear what you see somebody else has on. You think it's cool. You think their sneakers are cool. You think their t-shirt is cool. You think the way their haircut is, so on and so forth. So we get into these different periods of time. The Romanticism during the 17th century, that's basically when artists were using their emotions to express their art. You know, you had people like William Wordsworth and Nathaniel Hawthorne. You had texts that came out like the Scarlet Letter. Well, I know I read that in school. I think students are still reading it because it's on Barnes and Noble's popular reading list before school, and Frankenstein. So then you have industrialization, you know, that ushered in um, jobs and it ushered in the middle class. So people started to purchase things because they had leftover money. So, as this guy in your textbook, his name is Russell Nye. He says, and you can see this on page 11, when he talks about industrialization ushered in an age of mass production and resulted in, among other things, the emergence of the middle class. This new socioeconomic group had more money to purchase manufactured goods and more leisure time to use them than previous generations. So, with the extra money in your pocket, you're going to the beach, you're going to movies, you're going out to be entertained. And then we have the Frankfurt School. So the Frankfurt School basically talks about the critical theories of how we learn to construct, um, how we learn how to criticize these different material items, um, these different ideologies. So you had some well-known people doing that. So like what is critical theory? You have is the discussion about a method has been always a constant topic for those critical theorists who have attempted since the beginning to clarify specificity of what it means to be critical. So a primary broad distinction is the method between social theories, scientific theories, and critical social theories. So the Frankfurt School was known more appropriately as critical theory. So we're going to get into rhetorical criticism and rhetorical analysis in this class. And you're going to be looking at artifacts, and you look at an artifact and you become critical. Like, what does this role this character plays in the movie? Like, can we be critical of that? So take a movie like Friday. I don't know if you guys seen this, but Friday is with Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. It's a cult favorite movie. Also, it's a movie like for like weed heads or pot heads because Chris Tucker's character name was Smokey. But the representation of black males in that movie, if we would look at it through a critical lens, was harsh. Unemployment, adultery, crime, drug dealing, so on and so forth. Even though it was a successful movie, we still can become critical of these different artifacts. So we can be critical of rap music, or we can be critical of the NFL. We can be critical of politics, so on and so forth. So again, defining of popular culture, the material unconscious of the everyday, and popular culture, how is it used to persuade us? So then we have social learning theory. So this is a learning process. It's like behavior is learned through observation. We're inundated with messages. You know, when you're driving, you see billboards, you see stores, you see advertisement on television, on your cell phone. Um, so we're molded, excuse me, by these observations and instructions, and it influences us. You know, if we're watching something on TV when we're hungry, we might say, "Man, I want to go get that," or uh, like I said, if it's a new article of clothing you like, or it's a song that you listen to all day. It's basically through observation, it shapes who you are. So these two pictures, photos right here, like "Let Go My Ego," um, how the commercial played over and over again shapes a person's behavior. So it got to the point where, you know, people sold pet rocks. This was a thing. I don't know if you guys remember this, but a rock actually does nothing, right? But the way it was promoted is like this pet rock is unconditional and it'll be your friend forever. So social learning theory, like people that are inundated with messages, sometimes adhere to them or take them as reality because or real because they're on television or they're in a constant ad that you see. So it's the same thing with cultivation theory. It has this looks at the long term effect of watching TV or just movies. The more you watch, the more you believe that these social realities are in line with what we see on television. So you're cultivated by looking at these messages over and over again. These superheroes in their bodies, Jason Bourne, played by Matt Damon, and things that he can do. We're going to talk about this when we get into manhood and masculinity and how the Black Panther was it was so phenomenal for the African American community because it's the first time you saw a movie about black superheroes. Um, and so it's the same thing with Men's Health and Women's Health magazine. You see how if you look at the messages on all six of these magazines, abs, arms, looking great is the most important thing. And then how they exploit the women with them having no clothes on and the men having clothes on. So we're going to talk about like the visual pleasure theory in a couple of lectures. Okay, then we have parasocial relationship theory, which basically is when things kind of get out of hand. Like it's a psychological relationship that you have with actors or personalities that's on television. As an audience member, you're drawn into this. So there was a movie, Her, that was got a lot of play in the theaters, but this basically is what parasocial relationship is. You can have a singer like I don't know Drake, Kendrick Lamar, Ariana Grande, and you think that this individual is talking to you, and you know him or know her, and you develop a friendship. So that's the parasocial relationship theory that gets into that how these artists or these personalities are really impacting your life. So some of the implications of popular culture, you what is drawn from it. It's difficult sometimes to understand how it is impacting your life and how it impacts other people around you. So the context is always persuasive um, because you see it over and over again. So it plays. If you even if you don't watch TV and you're only on your phone, um, if you're only on social media, with Twitter, you're still persuaded by different messages. This is not trivial. It's not simple. It's something that we're going to get into this semester. And I hope you enjoy the class. We have a lot more lectures and we have some fun activities that you will take part in. So this ends lecture 1.